who's going to talk to you about what's your money personality. Now, I did this one last year and it was quite fascinating to kind of learn about your own kind of attitudes to money. I'm going to pop a link in the chat box to become a member of the Postgraduate Association. Otherwise, I'll leave it to you, Liz. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Alison. So welcome, everybody. So yes, this evening, as you've signed up for this session, you know that we're going to be talking about money personality, and I've changed the heading here to make it a little bit more even enticing. Why knowing your money personality is the secret to your financial success. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about that tonight. So lovely to have the three of you here this evening. And I know, so the session is being recorded and it will be shared amongst those who have registered as well. So know that you'll receive the recording as well, and you can listen back as well. So welcome. I've got a lovely list that Alison had shared with me of all of the students who registered for tonight's session. So I've got great insight into all of the backgrounds and courses that you are all studying, and it's fabulous to see such a mix. So a lot of interest in this webinar across all of the different study and field areas from which you're working. So a big welcome and acknowledgement to all the amazing work that you're all doing as postgrad students. Before we commence, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands from which we're all connecting today in this online webinar. I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and recognise and celebrate their connection and role in caring for country over thousands of years. May their wisdom and strength be with us today. So a little bit about myself before we jump into the topic for tonight. For those who haven't come across me before, my name is Liz McLardy. We've been running, I've been working with the SCPA for 2 years now, running some courses, and I also provide financial coaching and counselling services free to the Postgraduate Association students. And prior to that, I was actually a unit assessor here at Southern Cross University teaching and accounting. So my background is as a CPA. I've worked in corporate across both Australia and internationally in management accounting primarily, and then moved into teaching. So then teaching at higher ed, I also teach vocational and also help support the CPA program as a subject matter expert. So financial education literacy is something really close, I hold closely to my heart. So I'm hoping that I can share some of my knowledge and skills with you as we work through this webinar tonight. So my aim with these webinars that we've run, it's really about helping you to feel more confident and competent financially so that you can focus on your studies, your career, and the people and things that you love. It's likely that you've probably experienced so far throughout your education, throughout primary, high school, now in higher ed, that you've been taught how to have a fulfilling career, how to find work, hopefully, that you feel really passionate about. But what most likely is missing is the piece around, okay, what do I do once I'm earning that money? How do I look after it? How do I steward my financial resources to feel financially and be financially secure so that you can, have that fulfilling career, but still have that, financial skills and literacy. So often people are missing that. So we're hoping that through these webinars and having me as somebody you could get in contact with, if that was something you felt comfortable with, I can help, bridge some of that gap that most of us have, because you're never taught how to manage your money. We're never taught about, financial literacy at school, let alone in university. So you're all experts in your fields, but I'm hoping that I can just help you with that gap around financial literacy to really help you to get off and focus on the career and the fulfilling work that you're doing. So tonight is a little bit different in terms of the topic and what we'll be talking about when we look at some of the other webinars which I've presented. So often we'll be looking more at some of the practical financial aspects of money management. So we've looked at this year, we've had a webinar around your HEX debt, what does it mean, making decisions about that. We've looked at debt itself, like how to manage debt, different types of debt and different strategies to demolish it. I think that was the name of the webinar. We also had a webinar around some of the tax tips for this year as well. So you can go back and look at some of those through the SCPA YouTube channel. They have all of them recorded. So they're all quite practical and really those financial literacy skills and topics. This is one that's often missed. So this is more of the behavioural side of finances, which is really important. And I wanted to go through this one in this month, so in September, because next month we're going to be running a 3-part financial wellbeing series where we actually go and we look at what are the sort of core financial tools, things that us accountants use all the time that seem probably and sound scary, but they're really helpful if you can get your head around them and use them for your personal finances. So that's what we go through next month. But before that, I like to, at least get you thinking about how important your behaviours and your tendencies and your relationship with money, how important that is. Because it may be that you do know how to budget, but following that budget is another thing. So the learning how to do a budget is what we'll look at in terms of the tools, and but the behavioural side is, well, am I actually going to follow it? Do I stick to it? So hopefully what we'll kind of look at and start to unravel here in this webinar tonight is to get you thinking about, what is it that I do, or some of my behaviours. And they're not, I don't want you to be critical. I want us to approach this with curiosity and compassion. I'm really, really big on that, because often when we're talking about money, the first thing people will do is criticise what they do or how they are. I spend too much, I'm not very good at this. And that's not very helpful when we're wanting to create a really healthy relationship with our finances. We've got to be balanced in our view and look at, okay, what are our strengths and weaknesses? And this is a really good way to start looking at that with some of the softer behavioural stuff. So we're going to go through, we've only got, 45 minutes as usually, but I'll try to stick to in terms of talking, and then we'll have some time for questions as well. But if there's something that's, have a question about as I'm going through this evening, please feel free to use the chat function or just raise your hand as well with the hand function in Zoom. And I'm happy we've only got the 3 students here tonight, so happy to have a chat as well and make this, quite a nice, open forum where you feel comfortable. So the first thing that we're going to look at, so I usually try and divide it into 3 key things to not overwhelm. And so you can, walk away at the end of this being quite clear and knowing what you've gained from it. So the first thing I want to look at is, why it's important to understand your money personality, and, why are we even talking about it? What value is it going to bring to your financial life? And then we're going to look at some approaches that are going to help you to increase your self-awareness. So if we acknowledge that, okay, it's really important to understand your behaviours and tendencies around money, then how do I actually do that? So we'll look at some tools and techniques for that. And then we'll look at just some really common, limiting money beliefs that many of us hold for whatever reasons, for lots of different reasons. And we'll look at just some little quick strategies for how you can overcome some of those, so you can start to have a bit more of that balanced and positive relationship with money, as I've been talking about. So I hope that this is covering off some of what you thought that you're sort of signing up for, and I hope that is going to be interesting to everybody. So this first picture that I've got here is really just to kind of open up that idea that everybody has a different money personality. And, if we've got a room full of people, this is just a made up room full of people, that you're going to be able to see that, and you wouldn't know this about them, because as we know, money is a topic that most people keep quite secretive. But if you were to find out people's money personalities, you would see that there would be, in a room full of people, they would be quite diverse. And what I thought might be a good sort of starting exercise would be to, if you could, for the 3 of you here, if you could think about, even without having, much of an idea of, the definition or what I'm thinking about in terms of these different money personalities that you've got there. So you've got the ostrich, the big spender, the debtor, the saver, the shopper, the investor. If you wouldn't mind sharing, you can use your audio or your chat. Alira is telling me that the slideshow is still on the title page. Thank you so much for letting me know that. Now, let me just see. Can you see it now? I'm just wondering what you probably I'm going to just stop the share. And I really appreciate that you've let me know. And then I'm going to reshare. And hopefully we're on the right place. Share that. And then I'll pull the chat in there. Is that working now? Okay, so I can go back. So you've just missed a couple of these slides as well then. So little snapshot of myself. And yeah, so these are 3 things that we're going through. Okay, good. So as I was saying, so if you wouldn't mind using the chat, just as Alira has done, and sharing, you know, what you think that your money personality is. And I know that if this is kind of generalized, because we can get quite detailed with our analysis of ourselves, and we could think, you know, in some particular domains or decisions we can be different personalities, which is really good to, we don't want to go into that much detail just yet, but just at a high level generally, if you could share, or even what you think that, you know, your money personality is like most of the time. It'd be great if you could do that, just to get an idea of where you think that you're at. Lovely, thank you, Alira. So Alira's sharing that she's popping herself in as the shopper kind of personality, money personality, which is great. So Duncan and Vanu, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I'm so sorry. If you'd like to share yours as well. So Duncan's saying it's definitely a saver. Okay, cool. So Vanui, I think she was on mute and she may be also busy in the background. So if you want to share, that would be fabulous, but I'll keep going. So great. So already we've got 2 different personality types being recognised. And is this something that you have been aware of? And do you think, I guess I was curious to know, so Alira and Duncan, do you feel positive about the personality that you have, or do you get sort of criticize yourself for being the shopper or being the saver? So just interested to see what your judgment of your personality style is. Okay, Duncan saying a bit of both. Cool, that's really good as well. Okay, cool. So Alira is saying that she's aware of it, which is fabulous. So conscious of not going overboard. Brilliant. So, and this is the really, you know, coming to that first key message that I wanted us to sort of to look at in this webinar tonight, was why understanding your money personality is so important. It's not so much about, you know, finding really complicated ways of being able to define and categorize yourself and put yourself into a pigeonhole and say, I'm this kind of person with my money. That's not the point at all, but it's, you know, it's good to have a starting point like those names that I came up with, and we'll have a look at some other sort of money personality surveys and things that you can do to sort of get some feedback or ideas of, you know, giving yourself a little bit more of an idea of what your relationship with money is like. But it's about that awareness, which Alira has already alluded to here. So it's important, because if you're aware of it, then you can use it to your advantage. So it's neither, and I really appreciate that Duncan and Alira have both acknowledged that, which is great, because you've got that balanced view already, that you're saying that the way that you are, so if you're a shopper or a saver, it can be good and bad, which is the case for all of them. So there's no one personality that is better than another. it's just that if having that self-awareness is going to, it's like that knowledge is power kind of typical thing. But it's just knowing yourself. So if you know yourself, and I can hear Alira's already saying, so she's conscious of it, you're not going to go overboard. And then that's when you can start to implement some practical strategies to help your particular type of personality, which is what we'll look at when we go into the 3-part series next month. I've got some practical things that you can do once you know what kind of personality you are. So for example, Duncan, if you are a saver, which is great, but making sure that often what comes with somebody who's a saver may be a different kind of outlook towards risk taking. And it can be that you're maybe not unlocking the capability that you have within your finances to really build the wealth that you would like to, or to be able to achieve things that you would like to. And it can also create, depending on, so we're talking really generally here, and this is when working one-on-one, you can, dig a bit deeper. But if you're a saver, often, sometimes people can have quite a lot of, we can have a lot of stress associated with any personality type. Depending on how you feel about it, over shoppers, reckless spenders can have a lot of stress too, and that's probably another point as well, that all personality types have that tendency to still have financial stress. So there's not one that is better than the other. It's just being aware of it and being able to support ourselves and know ourselves. So the savers can be stressed if they may be stressed when they have to spend money and they don't enjoy it. Whereas, somebody who's spending, really enjoys that feeling, but then they feel guilty, and then there's stress associated with that. So it's really about setting yourself up systems and practical ways to help support you and your tendencies to make sure that you're enjoying, you've got financial security, so you've got your, that covered, but you can also then enjoy your money. So for a saver, you might have a budget that, ensures perhaps that you're trying to achieve a particular savings goal, but that you still budget for a little bit of reckless spending. You might have some money in there where you can just go, right, I know that $20 this week, I can just spend it on whatever. So just to make sure you've got that space in your budget to be able to relax and have fun. Whereas with a spender, it may be about, making sure that you've got, the savings in there so that when you do spend, you can relax and enjoy it. That's just the real key reason why it's important for us to understand our money personalities. In addition to that, obviously, once we go just, beyond ourselves and our own relationship with money, it's then knowing, if you're in a relationship, or you're married, or you have kids, if you're aware, the more aware you are, and then you're aware of, and you can maybe be open and speak to your family about their tendencies and their behaviours, you can actually then utilise them again, know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and set up systems again and have compassionate conversations to help look after each other, and also make sure that you're achieving the goals that you want to financially, and nobody's feeling like neither that they're superior nor inferior. You want to make sure that everyone's on the same team and you can use everyone's personality. So I think that's kind of the key there, is why it's important. It's going to help you to shape your approach to spending, saving, and investing. You will, so once you know how you approach money, then you can consciously choose to develop a healthy relationship with it and prevent it from causing financial challenge. So if you know that you're a reckless spender, and as I said earlier, there are particular domains where some people are reckless spenders, or have that, and being aware of that, and then setting up positive boundaries, or practical systems to help you in that scenario so it doesn't become a problem, is really helpful. So, and I think we've kind of answered this when I've been chatting, but so which money personality best describes you? So I think so Duncan, you might be maybe the hoarder or the money monk, maybe, and Alira's probably thinking through, and being the spender there might be the categories again. And this is just another set of 4 labels or categories. You'll see lots of articles about personality types when it comes to money, and people have come up with all sorts of things. But at least it starts to prompt you to think about, oh yeah, so what am I like? What would I be? And even if you don't fit into them exactly or all the time, it still just helps you to build that level of self-awareness. So that's why, you know, these can be helpful. So our second sort of point here to work through tonight is looking at, okay, if we know that understanding our money personality is really important, it's what drives our behaviours, you know, the actions we take with the, you know, all this money that we've earned. So we know that understanding that is really important. So this is now looking at, well, what are some of the approaches or things that we can do to help increase our financial self-awareness? So it's looking at what are some of the different, you know, money personality. We've got different quizzes. So up here, I've just found a couple of different resources which you might find useful. As I said, some will be useful, some won't be, depending. But it's kind of a good exercise to do. And as I said, I would recommend doing it if you are married or in a partnership. It can be really helpful just to kind of get a little bit of feedback and prompt that discussion and awareness, really with the view of making sure that you're identifying like strengths and weaknesses, but not with that view of criticism and judgment. It's really that curiosity and compassion, and about how can we, you know, improve our relationship with money and relationship with each other. So don't allow this to be fuel for fights. It's more about, you know, looking at, you know, let's understand, you know, how we are and what we're doing. So I've just got a couple here that I've came across that I thought were quite useful. So you probably, a lot of you are aware of, you know, if you're studying business or psychology and health, the Myers-Briggs, you know, if you've gone for job interviews as well, those personality assessments. But there's one that they've done. So they actually partnered with a financial investing firm, Goldman Sachs, and they've come up with this, you know, a quiz that you kind of go through and answer quite detailed questions, which can be quite helpful, and it allows you to kind of, you know, dig into some of that deeper awareness and understanding of yourself. So just a bit more of a level down from, you know, you've kind of identified that you're the shopper and the saver, but looking a little bit deeper in terms of your personality, you know, with investing, or particularly with spending or saving, or even sharing and donating money. So we can have different views and attitudes towards those different domains of our financial life. So that can help you just kind of have that bit more awareness there. Another one is from the Pineapple Project. So this is a quiz. This is an Australian one. So again, you know, quite a straightforward quiz sheet there that you can have a look at. A Japanese, I'm not sure if you've come across Ken Honda. He's written a book called Happy Money, and he's got a money personality type quiz as well. So those three, some that I came across that I thought that could be quite useful. If you find others, yeah, please let me know, and I can, you know, share them as well with students as a resource. If you come across some. The idea is not to do analysis paralysis as well, though. So, you know, we can sit there and do, you know, all sorts of personality tests and, you know, do ones that we like, because the outcome, you know, you read what the outcome is, or what they've categorized you as, and you quite like that one as opposed to another. So we've got to be aware that, you know, we might have that kind of bias. But what we really, the aim of what we're trying to do is just to deepen that understanding of ourselves to utilize those tendencies and behaviours to, you know, create financial security and build wealth to, you know, to have a happy life. You know, and some of these, as I was going to say at the beginning of this webinar, a lot of what I'm talking about here, it's not brand new. It's nothing that you've probably not heard before. So it's probably more likely to be a bit of a reminder than anything. And perhaps some of these things are things that you may have heard about for other purposes. So here I've got, you know, you can do journaling, you know, if you're somebody who does journaling a lot and enjoys that, and writing and just having that sort of quiet space, whilst you're writing. If that's something that you like, you can incorporate that self-reflection in terms of your financial life as part of that journaling practice can be really powerful. So often that will be something that's sort of taught through, counselling and mental health as a really effective, positive behaviour that you can do as well, particularly if you're working through particular financial emotions or thoughts. Journaling can be very helpful, and it can help you to understand what is actually going on, digging deeper, but in a space where you're not having to talk to someone if that's not what's really helpful to you. So journaling can certainly be really helpful. You can also find journaling prompts. There's heaps of them, if you on the internet as well, if you're looking for something that can help you to, unlock or discover other aspects of your financial behaviours and tendencies as well. So a lot of those, which again won't be brand new to everybody, but so most of our behaviours and tendencies really come from our early years. So if we've got any psych or counselling students here, but it's like a lot of our behaviours, particularly our financial relationship, is really the foundation of it is in how we saw money managed at home when we were young. And even if you've got two, siblings coming from the same family, watching the same parents, their relationship with money is still different, and what they took from that situation will be different. So the most powerful, use of that experience is to look at, okay, what did I experience? How did I interpret that? How is that now sort of, had an effect on the way I now behave with my money? So not so effective to compare yourself to your siblings, or there may be frustration and anger, perhaps, depending on, what you saw or what you're exposed to, but most effective to look at that situation with the lens, of where you are here and now, and look again at, what can I do with that relationship with money that I now have? I can see where it's come from. I can see that I watched my parents worry about money. I can see that they were always, budgeting and fearful, and now I know that's why I am. Or sometimes you can find a sibling that might go the other way. They might make up for that lacking feeling that they had when they were younger, so they spend to fill that gap. And nothing wrong with any of that, of course, just really helpful to be aware of it. And that again, compassion for yourself, know that's why you're behaving the way you are. And then again, take those time to think, is this how I want to continue? What could I do differently? So yeah, journaling can be really helpful for that. Seeking feedback from close friends and family can help us to better understand our relationship with money. I know it's not something that we're brought up to think that you can talk about, but if you've got, somebody close, and make sure that their opinion and you've got to take it, you'll know them well, and take on, feedback that you might hear from them, but also ensure that you also consider how you see those situations. So don't be too shaped by the opinions of others, but it's your financial life and how you want to live with your money. Somebody might think that you're a miser and you save too much, but if that's their point of view. But if you look at your situation, your projection of where you want to be, or a goal that you want to achieve, and you've decided that in order to achieve that and to save X amount of money in 2 years' time, you need to live your life like this. To somebody, yes, it might look like you're just being a saver and a miser or a hoarder or whatever it might be, but that's the decision that you've made for yourself, and you've got a reason for that. So being clear about what your intentions are and what your purpose is of the money that you're sort of planning. Knowing your financial emotional triggers is really revealing too, which is really helpful. And just, again, with that reflection, journal, or even just having time, if you're somebody who likes exercising or whatever it is, wherever it is your space for thinking, you might have time to sort of think over, once a week. Maybe there's something that triggered you. For a lot of people, it can be you know, frustrations around people that seem to have money, or and you know, why is it working for them, and you know, why didn't they do this? You know, we can all have different. We'll get to some of those common beliefs or that are underlying the emotional triggers. We can look at how we can, you know, more positively approach some of those to change that dynamic that we have with money, because if we have that negative association with it, it certainly it certainly impacts and spreads out to how we deal with it. Vanu, again, you just added there that you're a saver too. Fabulous. So we've got 2 savers in here. That's cool. And the last sort of practice that you can do is, you know, meditation and mindfulness sort of practices. They strengthen your compassionate self-awareness of all aspects of your life. So obviously they're, you know, very well known methods that are used, you know, across all sort of health and well-being at the moment, but it's not necessarily something we think of around our financial life, but certainly something that you can integrate into, you know, more of a holistic sort of well-being approach. It's not just about meditation for stress, although a lot of your stress could be to do with your financial life, so that's certainly going to help. But just having that mindfulness practice can help you when you are potentially emotionally triggered. You can at least take that time and have that awareness of what's going on, so that you can, you know, do something about it, plan, understand, seek help if you need to. So I hope that hopefully that's some practical and helpful things that you can do. Does anybody do any of these things already, or think that maybe they will start to do some of them, or maybe they're something that they do for other reasons, but think that maybe using them to help you understand your relationship with money could be helpful? Just curious to see if any of that, or any of those sort of personality tests or quizzes seem like something that you might like to investigate. Just share in the chat. It'd be great just to hear from you, just to see what you were taking away from that. Okay, cool, thanks. Alira's just shared that talking to their friends about it, your different tendencies and behaviours is really good. So that's great. I'd be curious to know if you do it, are you doing it in a way that's, you know, quite balanced in terms of acknowledging the strengths and weaknesses, or is it a lot of the time individuals sort of sharing, you know, oh, you know, I'm not very good at this, or yeah, be interested to know, because a lot of the time we find ourselves being quite critical, and it may not be of other people. You know, if we're in a friendship group, we might be, and particularly for women, they're usually quite self-critical. So it'd be really, sharing strategies is brilliant. Yeah, that's a really positive group to be in, and that's a really great thing to continue doing. That's brilliant. So you can maybe suggest, if they're studying with you too, you can share some of these things with them, particularly when we go into using some of the practical tools, which we'll get to next month. There may be some things there that might be helpful for some of them. So obviously in this, you know, 45 minutes, there's a lot within the behavioural side of our relationship with money, and, you know, working, you know, having groups of friends or family that you can talk about it is brilliant. If you want to talk about it with somebody, you know, a counsellor one-on-one, or someone like myself, that's also, you know, helpful if it helps you to better understand yourself and have that space to kind of just, because for some people there's nobody for them to talk to about it. It could be that you're in a family that really doesn't talk about money, and it's something that you would never get an opportunity to sort of really understand yourself, and also clear some of the behaviours perhaps in the past that, you know, you may not be, you know, really proud of or happy about, but looking at strategies of how to help support yourself, and that's brilliant with what you're doing with your friends. So that's great. So I guess this, and again, I think we kind of answered this, but I'll put the question out there to you. Is the hoarder better than the avoider? So what would be everyone's opinion there? Yes or no? So is the hoarder better than the avoider? Any thoughts on that? Even what would you rather be, a hoarder or an avoider? Okay, cool. So Vanille is saying that no, which is kind of coming back to my earlier message that not one personality type is better than another. Obviously, each has strengths and weaknesses, and it depends on the domain or the decisions that you're trying to make or what you're trying to do. You can utilize all of the different personality types. It's just being aware of them, which is helpful. But when I then changed the question to say, which one would you prefer? So Duncan saying the hoarder does then tie in with the personality type that you had identified earlier about being a saver. So obviously those do naturally link together. So I can understand you choosing that one. And I guess that in saying that the hoarder is coming from a place probably of fear of not having enough. And what we don't know about either of them really is, well, what is their financial situation? So we don't know what their financial situation is. All we're making a decision about is what are the feelings that we would rather have. Yes, so and the hoarder, absolutely, that it's about that they're afraid they're going to lose everything, so they hoard it, which that's one feeling and one way of, I guess, one experience of living. And the other is the avoider, where you're afraid, you don't want to. And I had a student last year who, really openly admitted being the ostrich earlier in the slide deck, where we have, the room of people. And she, for a large part of her life, really just kept her head onto the sand, like the avoider here, really did not want to know about her finances. I think it was the fear of, it's a similar base of emotions from which they're both operating, but there's certainly a fear there. So you just avoid it altogether, and you're just sort of distracting yourself and hoping that it all works out. So neither is particularly comfortable in terms of, if you're wanting to choose an emotional state to have as the predominant one throughout your life. Interesting that, but I hope that we can kind of pull out of the first question of saying, is one better than the other? Let's come back to that idea that neither is better than the other, that we can utilize, and also just having that self-awareness is the best thing. But I think possibly Duncan and Alira probably thought that, and hypothesized, which is correct, that if you're a hoarder, you're probably likely to be in a better financial situation because you're a saver and you haven't spent. But you could be, you could have an avoider. We just don't know what their financial situations are, do we? So that's part of this as well. But great, thanks for sharing your insights there. So as we're coming sort of to the end of the webinar, we're going to just look and have a bit of a chat about some of our common limiting money beliefs, and just a couple of, really quick strategies about how we can overcome them. The best way to look at these is really to personalize them, like this whole webinar. It's all generalized. We've kind of thrown around a couple of terms about being a saver or a spender, but the best thing to do is to really understand yourself in more detail and know, what are the domains in which you feel comfortable, which are the domains where you feel less confident or more confident, or which are the domains, and I mean in terms of the domains of finance. So we usually, split your financial life into 5 kind of key areas. They're kind of 5 things that you can do with your money. So it's all about earning. So have you got financial well-being and fulfillment in how you earn your money, how you spend it, save it, share it, and invest it. So that can be a really helpful way to start to kind of dig a bit deeper and look at how you're relating to your money in those 5 domains. So some you might be feeling more confident and happy with, but others, you might, so maybe it's the investing that you're much more cautious and don't have as much sort of confidence, and that's something you want to work on. But you might be really good at sharing your money. You've got a really good, strategy around, donating and how that's aligned to your values. So it can be helping you to sort of structure what you might like to change and some practical strategies around those. Again, something we'll look at next month. But just to kind of look at this really generally, because what I would do if you're, working one-on-one, and you would do this too with friends if you were sharing, or family, is you would dig a little bit deeper into where the beliefs came from for you. Some of them are general, some of them we do carry sort of culturally as a culture, like this first one. So the first one, that money is the root of all evil, on some level culturally, particularly here in Australia, and I know, and US, UK, we have a similar, just based on culture of movies and things that we've been exposed to, but I would say that it's shared amongst more cultures than those. And we can even look back to simple things within our childhood and upbringing that belief is reflected in. Even Disney movies where the evil person is the Scrooge, or the witch that has all the money is the evil person. There's a lot of these underlying beliefs that have kind of been planted within our minds as we've grown up in a particular culture. So that's one layer. Even the culture within our family, that same message could have also been reinforced. It may be that, family members looked to people who seemingly had money through symbols of houses or cars or whatever it might have been, and it may have been that comments were made, or or that kind of thing. So it's useful to kind of look at, okay, so where does this come from, with that curiosity, because it's quite fascinating. You can think, wow, yeah, I can understand why I've got that belief. So the first thing is to kind of acknowledge that, yes, somewhere within me I do have that belief, and it's not necessarily true, because money is a resource, right? Like, it's not good or bad. It doesn't really, it can be used for good. Yes, it could be used ineffectively and for evil, but there's still that same potential for it to be good. And so what some of this helps us to do is change that dynamic, change that relationship that we have with money, because for a lot of it, it's quite negative. It's fear-based, and it's also negative, like money is dirty, or you've got to be greedy to have wealth, all of those kind of things, which are just not useful. It's not helpful to us. If we want to have financial security, build wealth so that we can, carry out a fulfilling career and, do some really positive contributions for the world, it's important to manage your money and to be aware of it. It's really important. So holding on to that kind of belief isn't helpful. So that's where you can kind of start looking at, okay, where are there opportunities that I can start to focus on feeding to myself to balance out that limiting belief that I've held for so long, that's been fed to me culturally and may still be fed to me culturally, but I want to balance it out and say, actually, it can be used for really good. I'm going to go and have a look at, some of the good companies that are actually doing some good things, or somebody who, even in my small community, maybe it's not a massive contribution, but, they used their money for a good purpose. So that can be really helpful. Another one of the common beliefs that we can have is that I've got no control over whether I become wealthy. That feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, which again really erodes that positive dynamic that I'm hoping that everyone can have, or at least work towards, with their finances. And it's then just looking at it differently and saying, I can create the life and wealth I want as long as I take consistent and proactive action. And it's about that action that you're going to take, instead of just putting your hands up and saying, okay, I'm the avoider, I'm the ostrich, I can't do anything, it's all doomed. which we can all have it at moments. I'm not saying that we're not going to ever have those feelings, or you're not going to fix these things and then they'll be done for life. But just being aware of, where's my go-to belief or way of looking at things that might be a little bit more helpful. Another one is, very common one is that we've got to work hard to make money. And what does working hard mean? What does that mean to you as well? So is that lots of hours? Is that really stressful work? So looking and examining that can also be really helpful, because what we want to get to is, I love and excel at what I do. My passion and skills solve real problems and will lead to great profits. So that's what you're all studying towards, and really want you to have that kind of perspective, as opposed to think that you've got to work so hard to make money in a way that you no longer like the work that you do. And that's what we don't want. We're setting you up to have fulfilling careers. The fourth one is about money doesn't buy happiness. So another, and I'm hoping as I'm reading these out that they are familiar, and hopefully not so familiar that you think, oh yeah, I know that, but I don't really believe that. But it's worth sitting with some of these, even 1 week at a time, and just feeling it out and just seeing if, actually I do kind of hold on to that one, and I do make small little judgments and have little fears, associated with them. So you can then look at how can I sort of undo some of those limiting beliefs. So money, not being able to buy happiness. So it can buy the resources and choices to create a good life for myself and others. So that's what it's all about. It's not the answer. It's not what creates happiness, but of course that you can, having resources is helpful. And the amount that you need varies depending on the person, the life experience you want to have. There's no set number. So again, it's just having that self-awareness and dialogue with yourself, as opposed to being, critical or frustrated. One of the big ones, particularly for a lot of the women that I work with as well, but equally can be for males, is, and it's really just about numeracy and exposure and encouragement at school. But we can have the idea that I have to be good at maths to be wealthy. And as we've been talking about tonight, or because it's really not been the numeracy side of our financial relationship, it's really the behavioural stuff. And that's exactly what this message here is as well, is financial success is driven significantly by my behaviour, not my mathematical ability. And the mathematical ability that's required to have a successful financial life is, and I know for all of you postgraduate students all have the problem solving skills required. It's more about having that confidence to ask the questions and find the people to ask the questions of, and to dig deep and understand, what is the problem actually trying to solve here, and structure your decision making. That's the key thing. So as I said right back at the beginning, my background is in management accounting, which is all about providing information, quality information, to the decision makers of a company, so they can make really good informed decisions to ensure that that company can continue and the financial resources are utilised effectively for it to continue and achieve its strategic direction. And I'm utilising those same tools for us individually. It's the same thing. We're the CFOs of our life, and we've got to make sure that we give ourselves the information. So a lot of the time it's actually thinking, what is the information that I need to make this decision? And then finding where that is and finding the people who can give it to you, so that you can then look at different scenarios, compare them, and think about what's the right financial decision for yourself, for whatever you might be working out. If it's, to buy a house, whatever insurance policy you need, if it's, saving up to do a PhD, whatever it is. It's not so much about needing really a high level of numeracy skills. It's that awareness, knowing your behaviours, because as I said as well, you can know how to make a budget, but whether you're going to be financially successful or not is all about your behaviour. and how you set up positive, practical strategies to help support yourself, knowing your personality, to then achieve those particular financial goals or strategies. So I hope that that's been really helpful to kind of look at those common limiting beliefs. Again, nothing brand new. You've heard all of them before, but hopefully some of those ideas about, you know, how you could look at them differently are going to be helpful to you, and sort of, as I say, shift some of that dynamic potentially that you might currently have with how you relate to your finances. So just checking in now. So we're just coming to the end, and then I'll check in to see if anyone's got any specific questions. But my question here is kind of really a prompting exercise too, is, you know, what are you now going to do to positively change your relationship with money? And you've already started to do that by coming to this and, you know, getting curious about your money personality, how important it is to your financial success. It's the most important part. So, you know, continuing to be aware of it. So I've suggested here, you know, reading books, if that's, you know, how you like to get your financial information, or watching, you know, quality videos. Again, always looking at the source and everything of what you're consuming, which we've all got to be aware of these times. But you'll all be fabulous at, because you're all researchers. Read books that will increase your financial knowledge and influence your mind in a positive way. So one of which I was looking at, Your Money, Your Life, is a great one. Think about your life up until now and ask, you know, what were my experiences growing up? What is one thing that my parents did with their money that I want to replicate, that actually, you know, try and take a positive on that? And what is one thing that, you know, your parents did that you might want to do differently? So they could be, these are some sort of prompts that you could consider, you know, taking action on to kind of help move you into a positive relationship with money. And the last one is to give some away. As the research always shows, that giving money away is always one of the best ways to make you feel good and increase your financial well-being. But there's always a caveat to that too, is, again, this is all generalized information, not knowing anyone's particular financial situation. And as much as we want to give, we also must have it as part of a larger holistic plan, which is also looking after ourselves and our family. So you can also give in other ways, not just through finances. So that money might be better, you know, given a job in terms of looking after your financial security. But that would be something you'd look at in more detail when you look at your own personal financial life. So there's some interesting things there that you might want to do. So that kind of brings us to the end of the session. And I usually just finish off as well, just to make sure everybody's aware that we do have the financial wellbeing consultations. So I have a diploma in financial counselling and I'm CPA, and I'm available to have one-on-one sessions. They are free. There's obviously a waiting list and a first in, best dressed, but you can contact skills@scpa.net.au, and it's usually Craig who will then forward on your details to me to sort of set up a time. So they're, you know, virtual, confidential, one-on-one sessions, sort of provide you with, you know, personalised, bespoke, you know, depending on what you're doing. You might be working through a particular financial decision, and you just want to, you know, soundboard it and look at, you know, structuring your decision making. You may be just wanting to feel more in control of your finances and want to set up, you know, some budgets and systems. Maybe talk through some financial goals that you have. Explore your financial personality some more. All of those things I'm happy to help support you with, if that's something that would be helpful. The whole backbone and idea of this is that we're really trying to take the stress out of managing your money, so that you can, as I said at the beginning, we really want to, you know, have you enjoying your study and getting the most out of it, and having that headspace really dedicated to that, as opposed to being consumed by the stress of your financial life. So hopefully these webinars and me being available might be something that could help you. Does anybody have any questions about the webinar tonight? Any comments or feedback? I'm happy. We've still got 5 5 minutes sort of at the end of the session now. I'm happy to hang around and have a chat to anybody if that's something you'd like to do. But thank you for coming and listening. I know it's a tricky time, it can be dinner time, but thank you for coming along. And yeah, please let me know if you've got any questions. Lovely. Thank you, Alira. It's lovely to have you too, and to get a little bit, knowing a little bit about you. And yes, look out for, Alison will send out the details about the next webinar as well. So it's a 3-part webinar, so an hour for each one. And we look at, some of the different tools and techniques that can help you. They're kind of foundational things, really helpful at any stage of somebody's financial life, just to get everything in order, know exactly where you are financially, help you to, set some financial goals, and look at, what are some of the practical tools and strategies you can take to get yourself there. So look out for that one if that's something that sounds of interest as well. Lovely. Thank you, Duncan. Thank you, Alira. Thank you so much. It was lovely to have you along. And Vinal, if you're also there, thank you for joining. And I look forward to catching up with you at the next one, or if you get in contact to have a chat with me one-on-one. Thank you, Manui. Have a lovely evening.